Please enjoy The Dragon King's Daughter. The Dragon King's Daughter is a wonderful parable found in the Lotus Sutra, in which an 8-year-old daughter of a dragon demonstrates her ability to achieve enlightenment. Her declaration of her right to be happy took place before an entire assembly of gods, Buddhas, saints, and sages at the ceremony in the air. She is most certainly one of the first Equal Rights Crusaders. This modern-day rendition of The Dragon King's Daughter is about a Colorado cowgirl gone astray, falling into a horrendous heroin habit. Luckily, her sister and Cuban brother-in-law saved the day by taking her back to 1978 Brooklyn, where the New York City Salsa scene is on fire. From here, the story is told. Disfrútalo. Round 1, Brooklyn. The bed was nestled under the barred and paintless front window. The sounds from the street started up early. First, there was the milkman who delivered fresh milk in glass bottles. Next came a rooster crowing out his glory as if it were he who had invented the day. Finally, the children's laughter filtered in, and my sleep was stirred into waking by their gentle song. The older boys had the fire hydrant unscrewed, and a river of splashing water came through the O-shaped opening, a defiant cousin to the beautiful mountain springs back home. Yes, this Brooklyn daybreak was different and much stronger than the subtle way the world begins in Colorado, where I'm from. As I unfolded into this already happening morning, I envisioned myself a butterfly breaking free from her shell, stretching into my full wingspan as the white cotton covers fell beside me. I was as a butterfly, emerging expectantly. The sound of laughter was infiltrated with words said in both Spanish and English, and coño, did I ever feel alive. I listened to the children's vibrant laughter as it passed through the scaling of my barred bedroom window. If the stench from the hard-stricken street could be transformed into dreams come true, then New York City would be a haven for all humanity. As it stood, she was simply home to too many, and I caught on to this from the rich expressions used by the many people who sauntered past my window. I didn't miss Denver for even an instant. Though I complained of only asphalt, I knew there was so much more. My sister had moved in with a Cuban. He played the violin in a salsa band and was a bona fide New York Latin musician. Of course, back in 1978, that didn't mean much to a born and bred Denverite like myself. My first exposure to New York salsa music had been in Denver when I was over at Eddie and Teresa's apartment copping heroin. I told them that I might move to New York and live with my sister Sabra. Eddie told me that there were Latins in New York who could dance this crazy good old dance he dubbed salsa. Me, being a white girl who was quite willing to check out just about anything, I told him I would definitely explore this new dimension of ethnicity. I didn't realize it at the time, or even after watching the Latin dance couple in the hit movie Saturday Night Fever, that my new Cuban brother-in-law, although only common law, was very much a part of this rich new world. He was my direct link to Africano, Latino, Spanish, English proper, Portuguese, percussion, and this new dance style of music that New York City called salsa. Salsa was soon to be understood by me as every creamy calf color in the world, hurled into release like so many tops, whirling and twirling joyfully, naturally. It was mid-morning, and the heat from the day was already settling in. I walked outside through the open French doors into the reckless garden that was the backyard. Bamboo and jungle-like foliage made the contrast between the street out front and the lush backyard more like a primeval balance than a contradiction of soil. I was as intimidated by the density of the foreign flora growing in the backyard as I was by the extreme activity taking place in the street. I scuttled back inside. Alberto sat at the table being served his morning meal by Sabra when the visitors started to arrive. I had no idea why they were coming, these Puerto Rican boys, and it was hard to escape them inside the brownstone apartment. The first floor was a long and open room with my bed and bedroom at one end, and a kitchen that gave way to the outside garden on the opposite end. Other than a dining room table that seemed to be a self-declared divider of rooms, there was no segregation of space. Although it was early in the day, I was stoned on marijuana already, and the intrusion of my space by these Puerto Rican men was intensified by the high. Sí, Alberto, ella es tan bonita, said one evaluator named Chiqui Torres. Claro que sí, replied another. She is beautiful. Coño, I told you when I called that I was bringing another beautiful woman home with me, said Alberto. What did you expect? She's Sabra's sister. She has a nice smile, perfect teeth, and her lips are like flowers just kissed by the bee, said the poetic Chiqui, who already seemed to be an authority on me. I did not know what the conversation consisted of, as it was conducted all in Spanish, but I was aware of my own discomfort as their words and hands moved in succession with the eye movements that were blatantly assessing me. It was an exhausting initiation for a 20-year-old girl who had just left one city for the next and had a $100 a day drug habit to boot. Maricón, Sabra, coño, Sabra, Sabrinsky, where are my brown polyester pants? Shit, man, coño. I have to leave in 20 minutes. Coño, Sabra, where did you put them? I left them on the bathroom door hooked last night when I got home from work, and now I can't find them. Honey, oh, Sabra, where are my pants? Alberto paused long enough to look at me with true camaraderie. Let's go smoke a joint, sister, he said. I'll meet you on the front stoop. Sabra, Sabra, honey, please help me get ready. I have to go, you know. Yeah, I said to myself, you and Ricardo both. I understood the need for Alberto to talk incessantly. It didn't bother me a bit. And obviously Sabra took his poignant and helpless commands lightly, her own self. Out on the stoop, I watched the Brooklyn evening unfold. No fancy sunsets here. No, this was definitely not Diamondback Stables, paintbrush perfect at sunset. Instead, it was the early adolescent Puerto Rican girl hanging from her front window singing Donna Summer's Love to Love Ya Baby with all her might. The child was quite serious about the song and its vapid lyrics, and I speculated that it wouldn't be long before the island version of Rapunzel let down her long hair in a direct act of defiance against the morals of those who would keep her in captivity. My focus shifted to an Italian crowd of John Travolta lookalikes who came styling down the street with so many Vinnies and Joeys and Augies and Michaels meshed in with so many motherfuckers and go fuck your mothers. that it was hard to see how any saint's name could be attributed to any of them. But I knew little of saints. Being raised agnostic by my mother, I found my spirituality on top of my horse's back, an eternal bond retrieved. While riding alongside the creek or canal, I was showered in the sunlight that filtered through the leaves from a variety of very noble trees. I listened bodily to Shakiro's even pace as he strode in perfect syncopation with the melody of the water as it trickled lazily over the rocks and pebbles nested in the creek, or the more aggressive canal water which splashed along merrily, magical as Merlin, who took Arthur to the sea. I learned the wind does remember the names it has blown in the past, because there has always been a message for humanity whirling within a warm summer breeze. I was often in peril, a young girl alone in the elements, with nothing but her horse to guide her, but I was able to sense danger and respected it with distance. I tried not to be the antagonist in a threatening situation because I had witnessed nature's power and did not want to know her wrath. There existed a timelessness among the pony expression inherent in me, my spotted pony, and the trees. It was probably an amphibian connection among us that crawled up my thigh, connected to my tailbone, transmitted up my spine, and deposited into the deep recesses of my mind the evolutionary properties of wisdom and courage. As I watched the Brooklyn Italian entourage walk down the street, I was smug in my knowledge that there was earth beneath the city concrete. Alberto and I could hear drum rhythms from the front stoop where we sat together in smoke and conversation. Antonio, Poetic Chiqui's father, had come by to check me out, and after he had eyed me over, invited all the Latin boys to go with him to the drum shop on the corner, where he and several other musicians were already involved in a terrific jam session. The drum shop was owned by two Jewish brothers and was an alternative to, if not in direct competition, with the predominant drum and percussion instrument store for musicians who were so inclined. I couldn't believe I was sitting on a brownstone stoop in Brooklyn, listening to these outrageous Latin jams, watching the splendor of a New York City night coming on. Nisi, coño Nisi, where are you? What are you thinking about, little sister? Asked Alberto. Nisi, he persisted. I snapped back from my daydream to answer. Right here, I'm right here, Alberto. Well, why don't you go to work with me tonight? Asked Alberto. I thought to myself, sure, why not? But then I remembered all the men who had come as somewhat courting that day and decided not to go, in enlightened fear that a New York City Salsa club would harbor much more of the same. I better stay home with Sabre tonight, Alberto, but I'll go with you sometime. So right? I answered. So right, he replied, as he got up to finish getting ready. But I never had a sister before, so I have to show you off to everybody. He tousled my hair as he walked away. It felt good to have somebody care about me. I don't know if I was emotionally void for any reason in particular. All I know is how I felt when this anomaly of a Cuban man seemed willing to share his world with me in an honest and caring fashion. Considering how I was somewhat raised on deceit, this concept was right inviting to me. Something had triggered me and I was too agitated to go anywhere anyway. I started thinking about the fact that I had no one to come from. The novelty of the street degenerated into irritation as I realized that it had been over 24 hours since I had hit up Delata, and there was no more douchey for me. Shit, I thought to myself, I'm in the drug capital of the world, and I have no way of coping. I was really mad at myself for going this cold turkey route. My bones were beginning to ache, my nose was running, and I was angry at the world. It would have been futile to try to eat or sleep away my pernicious need for morphine. So I asked Sabra to walk to the corner store with me. I knew enough to be shy and timid in this city, to really mind my manners until I was more sure-footed on those streets. Sabra joined me on my walk to the store where I bought a 6-pack of beer. I explained to her that kicking a heroin habit was going to take some doing, and I needed to numb myself as much as possible right away. I didn't figure that a 6-pack of beer was really going to appease the monstrous need in me, but I knew that I had to do everything I could to subdue the aggressive urge for morphine. Hey Sabra, I called. Did Alberto leave any marijuana for me? No, she answered. He sure didn't, but I'll take you to get some. That's good of you, sis, because I'm going to need all the help I can get in order to make it through the night, I speculated. So Sabra, I prepared to ask as we started walking down the street, where do we have to go to get this stuff? Well, it's a ways, Nisi. We have to walk all the way down Bergen Street until we get to Park Slope, she replied, and then added, it's the only place I know to get some stuff, and I only know about this place because I was just there today with Alberto. One of the things Sabra had taught me how to do when we were younger, like say when I was 4 years old and Sabra was 11, was how to walk great distances. Not only did I begin to build up incredible endurance at this young age, but I also learned to pay attention to life in detail. We lived in a suburb of Denver called Littleton. My daddy was one of the initial developers of a dream community called Cherry Acres. Other than a few new homes which stood to initiate the new suburban development, the area was all open land back then, duck ponds, wheat fields, sheep herders and all. But it was a decrepit old farmhouse that was far away and up a hill from where we lived that left the deepest impression on me. I remember there were 2 horses kept there, and when we passed by them on our walks, my sisters were always arguing about whether or not it was good to feed them sugar cubes. I always felt bad when we walked through the farmhouse yard, like I was the one who had caused so much poverty. I identified with the neglected house and grounds in an eerie way, although it was in a dramatic contrast to the big and beautiful house that we had just moved into. The little broken down farmhouse with all its surrounding broken down sheds and horse stalls and all was somehow familiar to me. I didn't realize at the time that it was the incested me who understood it all. The guilt, poverty, and shame symbolized by the house that had cardboard for windows was a reflection of the broken down me that nobody could see. Yuck, it stinks. Lord, what is that smell? I asked Sabra in an offended tone. That smell, Nisi, is the Hudson River. Welcome to the New Jersey blend of sky blue waters, said the forever deliberate and quick-witted Sabra. I gagged at the atrocious odor that assaulted my nose so violently that I could taste the murky waters in my mouth. The mercury mixture ran silver gray-green as I stood and watched its flow from the side of the bridge. A slimy top layer coated this plagiarized excuse for water. Reflecting oily rainbow colors. I must admit, I had never seen such an open account of raw sewage, and I kind of admired the river of Greece for her honesty. I was used to hidden dirt. In my reality, any ugly behavior or representation thereof, including honest pollution, was always completely camouflaged or shrouded behind niceties. Whenever ugly tried to slip through, it was immediately canned and condensed into more secret and hidden and manageable forms. A river of shit? Never. As I stood there staring at the sludgy waters beneath me, I remembered the white trashy kid named Troy who lived on that broken down farm we always passed on our walks to the new strip mall. One day when we were in school, I believe it was second grade, Troy got real frustrated by something and grabbed our teacher's hair. She screamed and tried to make him let go, but he refused to, and the harder she tried to get away, the harder he pulled on her hair. His knuckles were white in their determination not to let go, and he was pulling on her hair so hard that her scalp seemed to be separating from her head. She started screaming for help. "Help me! Help me! Call the office!" she demanded. We just stared. So she dragged that boy over to the intercom by the hair on her scalp and pushed one of those magic buttons herself. The voice over the intercom questioned, "Hello? Yes? Hello? Help!" she screamed into that thing. Well, then the principal came running down the hall to our room and took a look at what was going on. His face turned bright red with anger when he saw Troy hanging off of our teacher's head. He went over and grabbed Troy up by the arm with such a tight squeeze that Troy immediately let go of our teacher's hair in complete surrender to the principal's threatening hold. Our teacher followed them to the office and was gone a long while. When she returned to the classroom, she was happy to report to us that justice had been served. Troy had been spanked by the principal and his father had been called to pick him up. I was broken-hearted by the news. It seemed to me that anyone could see that Troy came from a real tough family and probably needed some love and understanding, but was walloped by a stranger instead. I shuddered to think of what his father was going to do to him. You could tell. You could just tell. On one of our next walks that took us through the farmyard of the old house, I saw that kid, Troy. "Hi," I said with a big smile. He just looked at me with disgust. I wanted to communicate with him in the worst kind of way, because somehow I knew this kid and I had a lot in common. He was snot-nosed, tow-headed, and tough. There probably wasn't a caring bone left in his 7-year-old body. I was teal-eyed and trusting still. Troy had the advantage of being out in the open. He could wear his accused neglect on his ripped up and torn shirt sleeve. When he tried to communicate to the adult world in his most inappropriate way, the pain and discomfort he was enduring at home, they could shush him up and contain him real easy by sending him back to the beat-up old farmhouse and to his dad. In contrast to Troy, I was well concealed, with a pretty little girl like me who came from a brand new big bright white house on the corner of East Avenue E and Columbine Street. There was no way of knowing how much pain was inside of me. I couldn't tag myself with clothes that reflected the danger I was in. There were no high-risk signals available to me. I wasn't black or Mexican or Indian or white in the trashy sort of way. Instead, I was picture perfect with my long blonde braids and teal blue eyes, dressed clean pressed and silenced with the shade. My shy flower image was one of the only options available to me. and twisted to the side in a stance that somehow allowed me to keep my pride alive. I was proud then, yes, and even before. I only stumbled after the first time he raped me because I was barely 3. Thanks for doing this for me, Sabra, I earnestly sighed. I feel really sick right now, and it sure is going to help to smoke some reefer. Hey, it's no problem, Nisi. I never nurtured a junkie before, though, so you're going to have to guide me through this. Tell me if you're going to throw up or start growing hair on your face and howling at the moon, okay? Said Sabra, jokingly. I was too worn out to respond. My 20-year-old body was old and tired. The craving for heroin had grown so strong over the last hour that I hardly noticed the lively streets anymore. The change in my mood seemed to concern Sabra some, because she started walking faster. Well, here we are, sis. This is your initiation to the passage rites of all smokers who stalk the city streets, Sabra said with a disjointed smile. She knew I was going to like this show. The transaction took place smoothly. We entered a building on 3rd Avenue and ascended the stairs. On the top of the first flight of stairs, there was a door with a hole cut right into it. It was the Brooklyn version of a peephole. Rather than brass and glass, it was a hollow that someone had cut out and stuffed with a handkerchief. When Sabra knocked on the door, it was answered through the eye hole. The scarf was removed for visibility purposes, and when that eyeball laid eyes on us, the voice behind it was cool. Yeah? Came the inquiry. We need a nickel bag, said Sabra, with all her street expertise. She shoved the rolled up $5 through the hole before the dealer had time to hesitate. Most of his customers were people of color, and any of the Brooklyn dealers might be reluctant to risk a deal with 2 white women, with or without uptown tendencies. But our man came through for us, or rather me, and I was most appreciative. He probably remembered Sabra from earlier in the day when she was with Alberto, and so he had let his caution wane, whatever the reason for the score, whatever the reason for the score didn't matter. What was fascinating to me was the transaction itself. There was a certain wonder to this convenience store approach to shopping for weed. It was simply a knock-knock followed by a request. The money that was exchanged for marijuana through the little peephole was a way of copping which totally lacked unnecessary formality. The procedure was quick and efficient, a no-nonsense approach to dealing. I was taken. Brooklyn was obviously going to be entertaining enough for me.